Today's symposium brings together all the leaders in AI, blockchain, and crypto to explore the latest developments shaping the digital asset landscape. And you're going to be hearing from experts on different topics ranging from real-world asset tokenization to AI deployment and the growing convergence of crypto and AI. So at the School of Business here at Lehman College, we are very proud to be hosting this event because for us it's very important that our students as well as the community members here in the Bronx understand the emerging technologies and how it's impacting not just businesses, but also the education sector. Our mission here is to prepare the next generation of leaders here in the Bronx to thrive in a rapidly evolving technology landscape. So thank you to all our speakers and panelists and to all our guests, and also especially to our organizing teams, Sean and his team of administrators here who made this event possible. And we hope that you enjoy the program, get the chance to network, and leave very inspired. So welcome to our third annual Digital Asset Symposium, and thank you for being a part of this exciting event. Thank you.
So I'm really happy to be here. And also just a quick plug here for our undergraduate minor in blockchain and crypto. It was one of the first in the country, and well, it's still one of the first in the country in terms of enrollment and all the rest. And also just a heads up, I've also just turned in the paperwork for a minor in applied AI. So hopefully we are going to have that up and running by next fall. But to try to keep us on time, I'm going to launch into our first panel. Oh, and by the way, that's me, just in case there's any confusion. That's me right there, Sean Steinsmith, host, MC, and all that fun stuff. And also, I am going to be trying to make bad jokes all afternoon, so just heads up for that. But I'll stop talking now, and I will bring up our first panel, Michael and Antonio. Guys, you want to come up and do a brief introduction of you, your background, and all that good stuff. All right, clap them in, guys. All right. And because our panel is two up here, I'm going to join the panelists up here, okay? All right.
Please.
All right. Everyone's mics on?
Mic check.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. We're good. All right, good afternoon again. So I am thrilled to have you both here. I really am. Michael Thomas flew up all the way from, where again, Georgia?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was a great flight.
All right.
How's
the weather compared here to there?
Actually, it's a little chilly back home.
Back home it's a little chilly.
So I was checking the weather because I was like, if it's like 60 degrees in Georgia, I was like, I know it's like 40 degrees here. But it wasn't. It's the same.
Excellent. Antonio, welcome back.
Thank you.
And I think Antonio is the only panelist to have been here for all three events. Antonio, it's always great to see you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course. So to have our panel get started, I'm going to ask you both for just a brief introduction of you, background, and sort of how you got interested in this RWA aspect of blockchain and on-chain assets. Michael?
Yeah. So I actually, and I just want to make sure that I give Sean his props here, give him some flowers. Yeah, I need to do that.
You don't have to.
So roughly 4 years ago at this point in time, I actually reached out to Sean because I was noticing the work that he was doing in the blockchain technology space and wanting to create something as well at the University of Georgia. But at that point in time, there was a lot of resistance as it relates to it. So even as I was presenting that information, folks were like, well, who else is doing it? And why would you consider doing this? And so I actually, if it wasn't for Sean kind of co-signing on this idea, we wouldn't have been able to have created the class that we were able to create. So you're establishing a legacy. So I just want to make sure that
I appreciate that,
Michael. So, and I appreciate you. And so at the end of the day, I actually got into thinking about blockchain technology in 2018, or 2019 more specifically, because I had read a disclosure from Bank of America where they had changed some language, and I do read disclosures, so if that is nerdy, I'm sorry, it is what it is.
We're going to nerd out here today, so don't worry.
Because that's where all the good stuff is. The good stuff is in the disclosures. And they had changed some language that was surprising to me, which was opening the door for blockchain technology and crypto. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, all right, if they're changing language in a very subtle way, that means that they're positioning now. And so I need to be thinking about engaging with this space a little bit more. And then from there, it literally took me about a year to get comfortable with crypto, so I didn't just jump right in. And I needed to be able to understand it firsthand. And one of the ways that I did that was through a company called Stuff.io that ended up creating books on blockchain. So it was a low bar thing for me to kind of engage with, to be able to actually own a digital asset on chain, utilize a digital asset on chain, swap it, sell it, lend it, whatever it may be. And I was like, oh, this is actually easy. And it's connected to a wallet that I have, and I can do all these other different things with my wallet in terms of holding assets. And I was like, well, if you can do this with books, then what else could we do this with? And so for me, in terms of thinking about real world assets, from like a Jeff Bezos way of thinking about it with Amazon, like let's just kind of start this e-commerce business with books and see where it goes. At that point in time, it's just a matter of curiosity and creativity to begin to think about all the different possibilities of what potentially could happen if the regulatory environment and general sentiment around blockchain technology was in a good space. So, yeah.
And I'll just add there that our first conference in 2022, the whole atmosphere, it was a lot less fun back then as opposed to now. Antonio?
Oh yeah. It feels like 2017 all over again, especially with this topic that we're discussing.
Yep.
So myself, I've known Sean for over 3 years at this point.
Yeah.
We've spoken together at different webinars and conferences, and so I'm the co-founder and CEO for a startup called Blockquake. This is how I'm touching real-world assets. Where, you brought up Jeff Bezos, and kind of the same type of thinking at Blockquake. We're looking to build an ecosystem of fintech companies where the starting thing is the thing that makes most sense, a centralized global crypto exchange. So we're in the process of developing that and trying to get that launched in a couple of months, and obviously working on that and other things within the space. It takes you down that road of learning about DeFi and tokenizing anything from real-world assets just to speculation. And what got me into the crypto space was prior to being in this world now, I actually, for 10, 15 years, I was an internal auditor, both technology and operations in financial services. So like your AIG, Citibank, Chase, New York Life, et cetera. A lot of my team comes from those type of risk management backgrounds. And, we touched everything operationally and technology. So when I used to be in the technology audit department, a lot of people around me were talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that's how I started going down the rabbit hole of taking a look at this. And at that time, I was actually doing a lot of audits around cross-border payments, cross-border privacy, AML. So that's what caught my attention about crypto regarding cross-border payments. That was the thing that stood out to me. And looking at it from that perspective, and that's how I ended up jumping into the space a number of years ago, and just working on trying to build more mature infrastructure for trading and processing movement of funds in this world of crypto and digital assets.
Awesome, excellent. And to try to sort of kickstart our core topic here today, in terms of RWA, right? Real world assets being tokenized, being on chain, right? There are all kinds of options out there. There's real estate, there's art, commodities, equities. In terms of the most impact, is there any one asset class that either one of you feel has the most upside for actually being tokenized and driving cost savings, more transparency, or other benefits?
Stablecoins.
Stablecoins?
We were just talking about that, stablecoins, particularly dollar and gold.
What are stablecoins again?
Oh, yeah, so stablecoins, it's essentially tokenized. I mean, it is a tokenized real-world asset where the tokens are pegged to something of value that's stable. In the case of, we're probably all most familiar with USD stablecoin. So essentially, you put $1 million in the bank, you have 1 million tokens that represent that $1 million. It's audited, it's proven that, hey, the X amount of token supply, it matches to the dollars that are in the bank, and then that's tradable and movable. And the intention of that is that you're able to move money faster. Obviously, any of us that have done international wire transfers, it could take a couple of days to a couple of weeks, whereas like literally I just paid someone in Dubai $4,000 last week. I sent it in Solana-based USDT. It was in their wallet in less than 5 seconds. Versus a wire transfer that would, and it cost me 1 penny. So, you know, a wire transfer would have took 3 weeks plus $50. So yeah, that's an example of stablecoins, yeah, and the purpose of it.
So I'm gonna pop the hood on that. So in terms of how that works, how do those interact with other forms of currency, like the US dollar? Are they a competition? Are they an add-on, or are they an upgraded version of it?
I think it's positive for the U.S. dollar. I know there's a lot of conversations around people in the world just like, oh, is the dollar going to fall or rise? And with the passage of the Genius Act, I feel like it's a good thing for the dollar and for the U.S. economy that we're going to see all this money that's like pumped into treasuries. I think stablecoins are like the 3rd or 4th or 5th largest holder of treasuries now. Yep. So for the dollar, it's definitely not competition. I think it's actually going to help where money's put into treasuries, and it's really just going to continue to flip over and over. You're not really going to have people pull that money out. So that's great for the U.S. government, and people are just going to move that value around via the stable coin. So yeah.
I don't see that.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think it's incredibly important, especially when we think about different decisions that are being made by the U.S. government or any government, because we're then talking about what is the policy, what is the agenda as it relates to these choices. So whether that's monetary policy through the Federal Reserve, or whether it's fiscal policy through Congress, Ways, Means Commission, so on and so forth. So if we're extending deductions and credits, right, that means that we're trying to ensure that individuals can keep more money in their pocket and then have more cash flow, that eventually they take that money, spend that money in the community, that generates tax revenue, right? That is a policy. The reason why it was done was to encourage a particular behavior. It's not random. As we think about stablecoins, and the reason why U.S. Treasuries are wanting to use that as a peg is because if we look at trends globally from China, India, and other countries, they're actually purchasing fewer and fewer of our U.S. Treasuries. So now the question becomes, well, who then becomes a buyer, even on a global scale? Because unfortunately, we're actually tethered to an economic system to where inflation is always going to be a part of the process simply because in essence, the U.S. dollar is a commodity in and of itself. And it's something that we do have to continue to produce as we expand and we grow global supply. So if that has been kind of the game since the Bretton Woods Agreement, where the U.S. Currency became the world reserve currency, the question politically, geopolitically, so on and so forth is, how do we maintain a position of power and global influence as it relates to U.S. currency? Why not then consider this from a standpoint of stable coins in that regard? So if the U.S. stable coin becomes the adopted stable coin of trust worldwide and over, that means that we're opening markets in all parts of the world where there aren't even markets where there's exposure at this point in time. That expands dominance of the U.S. dollar. So there are some headwinds as it relates to, and again, for other countries, you would expect for other countries to be thinking about how do we protect our country and value and things of that nature. And at some point in time, we're going to see a competition as it relates to stablecoins. So we'll be right back where we were, right? You have the yen, right? You have the peso, you have the dollar, you have all these different things, and now they're just going to be on the chain, right? But then there's going to still be this whole notion of which one is it that individuals trust. And if we're pegged to the US dollar, then we have to then consider at the end of the day, well, do the same inflationary factors impact the value of a peg, right? Or a US stable coin, meaning that if we print more dollars and we're debasing the dollar and losing value. So the game is still the same. We're just now embracing and utilizing new technology. So I need you all to understand, if you understand the economic system as it works right now, we're just moving it from one space to a technological space, but it doesn't address the underlying issue of our debt issue, of our having to print more money issue, so on and so forth. So yeah, it's a cool technology in that regard, but then the question becomes, well, even if I have a stable coin, right, am I still losing value, and do I need to find somewhere to park my stable coin to grow its value? Yep. And then we start getting into DeFi, which is a very different space, and maybe not where you wanted to go here.
No, absolutely fine, Michael. No, and I would say there, right, that with both answers, that the whole conversation on crypto has moved, right, far beyond just Bitcoin or even worse, NFTs, which, I still think have some value, but the whole conversation has moved quite a bit, right? In terms of policy, in terms of laws being passed, we have institutional buyers, institutional players, we have BlackRock, Chase, Fidelity, all the way down. Yeah. And so in terms of compliance and policy, how has that changed, right? Because Bankman-Fried and the whole collapse of FTX just happened in 2022. Right now we're in 2025. That's not that long ago. Yeah. So how has that conversation changed in terms of how do we get all of these great instruments, be it stable coins, be it smart contracts, be it DeFi, how do we get those to fit inside current policy frameworks or compliance frameworks?
Yeah, I mean, it's
an easy question, I know.
I still think traditional audits need to be done, right? In the case of FTX, yep. It was just a straight up fraud, right? And had folks done their proper due diligence, you had some of the top investment banks give them $500 million. All they did was look at Excel spreadsheets. They didn't actually check if revenue was real. They didn't look at the actual systems, the golden source data. None of that was looked at. So like we can move to all this amazing technology, but we still have to verify stuff. And, I think there's a lot of people in space where they think we don't have to, but then if we don't, we're going to keep seeing these frauds happen and these blow-ups happening.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add to what Antonio had mentioned is that what's fascinating is that there's this interesting thing of mental accounting that happens with blockchain technology. There are clients that I've worked with who are incredibly risk averse, but yet they hold Dogecoin. Like, make it make sense, right? So there is this disconnect in the real world as it relates to how people treat crypto versus how they actually treat an actual dollar, which makes it even more important for there to be audit or auditability of the projects in and of themselves. Beyond that, though, with a number of my students who are wanting to engage in blockchain technology, and there's a new project that's emerging continuously in this space. Not only do we need to audit reserves and actual cash flow and whether or not they have a legitimate business model, but then we also have to audit code, because one of the bigger risks here, not the biggest risk, but another risk associated with this is that if I place my money somewhere and the code has not been audited through a third party that is unbiased in this regard, then we could have found that this particular chain was susceptible to hacks and they could have been addressed. But because there's like this rush to just make a lot of money and people turning a blind eye, we're not even looking at the stability of just the layer one in and of itself, which then if we lose that, then we have no trust whatsoever as it relates to expanding this industry. So there needs to be audit of the layer one solutions or these the code through independent parties that have actual verified ways in which you actually go into it. It's almost like if you're not a CPA and you ask somebody where your book's audited, and he's like, yeah, my neighbor down the street did it. Like, that's just not gonna fly. And you know it's not going to fly, but that's literally the world that we're navigating. There's a reason why individuals are trained to do what they do, and they know where to assess risk, which is where a lot of your work is. You just can't have some random person, because I don't know if they agree to pay me some amount of coins prior to listing to give me a clean audit, and then we just we don't know. How do we know, right? So there's a lot of risk there in that regard.
Yeah, and Sean, I know you and I have talked about this over the years. Real-world examples of proof of reserves. It's proof of nothing.
Exactly.
Like, you don't know who actually controls the wallet. It's some company saying they do. There's no audit done. We don't know who has legal ownership. Like, all those things matter.
Yeah.
And is there a precedence for legal ownership in this space as it relates to wallets? If you
Yeah, so I'll talk about what we're working on the crypto exchange side. So you had FTX and Celsius both go bankrupt. When those things happened, it was a shock to all their customers, like, wait, I don't actually own my assets, because they found out during bankruptcy proceedings they're last in line from a creditor perspective, and they were in shock by that. So as we're building our business model, one of the feedback we got from particularly institutional crypto trading shops was encapsulate our crypto exchange within a qualified custodian trust charter vehicle, so that the customers are also the legal owners of the crypto. So that's something that we're going to be doing. But right now, there might be there's thousands of crypto exchanges, maybe 2 or 3 only are structured as a qualified custodian.
Wow. And I would say that our kind of back and forth here does highlight the importance of having people that understand accounting, audit, controls, either as a CPA, hopefully, or otherwise, but hopefully as a CPA. And it does really hammer home to me just how much work still has to be done. That even though there's been a lot of progress, positive headlines, vibes are good, and all that there's still a lot of work to do.
May I add one thing there?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to advocate for CFPs.
CFP, yes, of course, Michael. Yeah, sure.
So, and so this is a very big conversation now in our space.
Yep.
Like, so if you're a financial advisor and you have a client who is wanting to take positions in crypto, how do you even begin if you don't even have a fundamental understanding about any of this stuff whatsoever? And so it's the entire financial system, I think, that needs to kind of come along and really embrace the technology, even if you don't want to incorporate it in a portfolio, but at least to understand it well enough in order to provide a clear explanation to a client as to why this isn't a part of our investment philosophy. Because if you can't communicate to someone who's already degenning on YouTube and all the other different places, then they're just going to go find someone else who's going to allocate to their portfolio. So a part of our opportunity here to protect investors is to actually understand things well enough to be able to say that this is where the risk is. And based on your risk profile, this does not make sense to incorporate it, because you wouldn't do this for an equity.
No.
Right? And so again,
Because you keep bringing up really great points. I have these conversations also. There are billions of dollars in RIA money that wants to be in crypto, but they can only use a qualified custodian legally. So like that's another problem that's going to be solved through this by more and more popping up. But yeah, there are a lot of regulatory hurdles for different types of entities or institutions to touch crypto on behalf of their clients that still need to be tackled.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to dive a little deeper there.
Yeah.
In August, I believe, there was a order signed that is going to let 401k and 403b plan managers possibly allocate funds in those plans to crypto. Now doing so, one, it's a huge market. It's a $12 trillion market, and that is going to, via a backdoor, get a lot more people possibly exposed to crypto. So in your roles, right, either as a planner, CEO, entrepreneur, if I gave you a magic wand, right, to educate policymakers, regulators when they are actually back in the office, right, as to what is the one thing you would wish they would get more educated on to really sort of lock in to help investors and consumers better understand the implications of all of these changes?
I'd say, I mean, this is what I tell everyone that's starting to look at crypto for the first time. Look at the use case.
Yep.
If it doesn't make sense to you, don't touch it, and just like apply common sense to it. Right? You have the rise of meme coins where people, yeah, there's some people that made millions, but most people have lost all their
Yep.
money on it, and you guys were talking about like there's people that are naturally risk averse, but then for whatever reason, they're like throwing their life savings into a meme coin, and then they're losing everything. So I think it's just like that basic education. Hey, it needs to don't touch it if it doesn't make sense to you.
Yeah,
if you can't make it make sense to you.
And the only other thing I would add here is that also with that, private equity is actually being thrown on the table as something to be included in portfolios. And the issue here is that most of the public, they don't really understand how private equity works. Most of the public, they don't really understand how
It's a dirty word to a lot of people.
Right, it is, quite honestly. And so as you were talking about like tokenization, one of the areas that kind of makes sense with these threads of logic that are, at least I think that's very logical here, is I could absolutely see a play for tokenization of private equity. And the reason being because private equity, generally speaking, is illiquid. So if it's illiquid and I need cash, then where can I sell off my position? And then so what happens, and we talk about this in crypto all the time, is that basically you're becoming someone else's exit liquidity. And that's exactly what's happening in some of these instances.
Yep.
And now, mind you, if you understand the risk of the position that you're taking, you consider maybe the time horizon in which, well, if it's tokenized, then that means you could sell it off. And then what does it do? It just creates a speculative market, right? So my frustration here as we navigate these things, both with including crypto and also private equity into 401ks, and it just generally opening a door for expanding the way individuals can invest, is that we're moving from a more traditional way of thinking about buy and hold strategies to opening up the floodgates for trading. And many of the platforms that I'm looking at right now, maybe it's just me, but behind these paywalls, one of the things that they're arguing as a value add is that you have access to all these trading tools. Now, in our space, back in the day, if your advisor was just buying and selling assets to make themselves look busy and charge you a commission, that was called churning. That was frowned upon. But we've literally convinced an entire generation of individuals that churning is a good thing. And so that therein is my frustration. Access does not equate to success. And I think that we're getting it confused, that just because we grant people access means that they're going to make optimal decisions.
That's a highlight.
Right?
There.
That's a bar.
That's a bar. It's part of the sizzle reel.
No, it doesn't. But we're thinking that we improve wealth of an entire population of individuals just by granting them more access without education, without understanding risk, without considering their risk tolerance and their goals, and in understanding and taking them through a process. So we have a DIY space of investors where if I gave certain advice, like I can lose credentialing for that advice. But individuals on YouTube can literally walk you through an entire process, cause you to lose money, and the entire chat thread is like, we're with you, bro. We lost money too, we're with you. I can't do that. And I would never actually do that, quite honestly. And so we're creating a space of greater expansion that goes beyond US borders, because now when we think about crypto, we think about it globally. So now we're actually spreading risk globally. So it's not just educating people in the US, but what if somebody buys some random product or whatever it may be on an exchange or crypto exchange in India, in Africa, or whatever it may be? Those individuals need to be educated too. So when we talk about crypto, we're talking about the globalization of something at scale, in which there are going to be a lot of nascent investors who are navigating the space and are going to experience downside while someone else is basically sold on the upside, and it just expands the game.
That is extremely accurate, Michael, and I do think that honestly highlights the ongoing importance of having conferences like this,
Absolutely.
panels like this, bringing people into the room that have that level of knowledge and background, because ultimately, it's all just a new application. Be it blockchain, be it stable coins, be it Bitcoin, be it XRP, spot ETFs, whatever. It's all just different versions of assets.
Yep.
And so on that point, how does the average person, investor, institution hold assets like this? Because they aren't equities, they aren't cash, they aren't commodities. How does a person hold this? Because I do know during our conversation there were some terms thrown around.
Good point.
Wallets, custody, control. How does a investor go about actually holding Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, from a practical perspective, this is why our first business line is a centralized crypto exchange, because, you know, I've accepted the fact that most people will never learn how to properly hold crypto on their own personally. And they don't want to, right? Like, we're not, none of us here are trying to hold stock certificates on our own. We wanted to.
Well, I mean, you know, I do have a couple in the basement.
I do have one at home, actually. But yeah, most people want to trust an institution to like handle the security, cybersecurity, all that stuff for them. So for most people, it's really identifying trustworthy custodians or crypto exchanges that have proven that, you know, they're not going to lose the keys, lose your assets, be hacked, etc. So
What's the key, Antonio?
So for most people, they don't know. So like I've used stuff like Trust Wallet, Coinbase Wallet, Phantom
Okay.
Wallet. So I've got a private key
private
to
key,
recover the wallet if I lose access to it. But
So
if
the
you
private key is the way in which a person or an institution could then get back into their
yes,
wallet.
Yes.
Okay.
And in the case of if you're leaving your crypto with custodian or crypto exchange, you the customer don't have to worry about that. The institution does, and they should have measures in place to protect that redundancies while, you know, protecting it from being stolen or hacked.
And I would add that if someone's going to self-custody, they have to understand the risk of self-custody. And now, mind you, with different layer one solutions, and we say layer one, so these are different protocols. So like if we have Ethereum or if we have Cardano or Avalanche, things of that nature, each of them actually has their own ecosystem. And in their ecosystem, they'll have wallets that you can utilize to own coins and tokens in their ecosystem. The issue becomes if we haven't audited the code of the ecosystem, if we haven't audited the reliability of these wallets, there can be hacks of an individual's wallet, because all chains are not created equally. And because there's so many different types of chains out there, it's impossible for one individual to kind of go through and read and kind of get yourself updated on all of these things. So that's an important piece. And the other thing that I would add, one of the attractive features of, let's say, holding a spot Bitcoin ETF, which is just basically the SEC has granted approval for a financial entity to purchase, to purchase a amount of Bitcoin relative to demand so that people indirectly could have access to Bitcoin. That's all we're talking about. Now, that being said, because you're not self-custodying it, that a custodian is holding it on your behalf, let's say if something happens to me and I've self-custodied Bitcoin, but my wife has no idea that I have a crypto wallet. She has no idea where my keys are. What are the estate planning implications here? So now as we think about risk, this is why this has to be such a comprehensive conversation, and why it's important to have conversations with individuals who are thinking about what's in the best interest of individuals beyond how much money they can make. Because if you make money and nobody knows that it's there because something happened to you and it's just sitting in some random wallet somewhere and lost in the ether, there's no estate planning process as it relates to this. And how do you even begin? And most people, let's just be honest today, like raise your hand if you're in a relationship and somebody else handles the finances. If you needed to log in and to pay a bill, could you do it? You see where I'm going here. All right, I'll stop.
No. Excellent points there, guys. And, you know, it really does strike me that as crypto and on-chain assets become more integrated into the everyday, right? Because now there are applications. Chase has their own stable coin. PayPal has their own stable coin. Visa and MasterCard both allow on-chain payments on their payment rails. That all of these conversations around control, custody, risk management, planning more overall are more and more mirroring the sort of traditional conversations on finance. And so at this point, I'm going to open it up for any questions from the audience. Questions, comments, any jokes about me personally. I can always take that. Nobody has any questions? We were that thorough? Yes. For your book.
Oh yeah, so I'm actually we're gonna provide we got a little special surprise on the back end, right? And so basically what this is so I had written a book, and I wanted to get to understand blockchain technology, because there's no way that, I don't think that you really can't do something unless you actually do it. So it was like, let me see if I can take a book that I'd written traditionally and put it on chain. And so there is a company called Stuff.io. They are currently working with, who's the Star Trek guy?
Which one?
Shatner. Yep. So, Shatner. He's actually releasing his own coin that is actually tethered to a video of his show. All right. And so I was like, oh, this is a cool way, because I was like, well, if, like, let's say if Beyonce could get the entire beehive, right, to buy a coin. But this is where we're going. Like you were talking about all the different platforms. Yeah. Now we have to be thinking about popular culture. You have literally individuals who are completely their own brand, that could literally do their own thing and provide special perks and things of that nature to individuals. So I was like, well, let me do this and see how it works. And so basically, this is no different than kind of like using Kindle on their platform. The only difference here is that you actually own the book that you have here. Now, for the books that I've sold, for every book that is sold into perpetuity, I also receive a royalty. And for individuals who hold the book, when I release my next book, because I can actually see what wallets my book's in, that I will be sending a special code for individuals to purchase my next book. So now what it also does, from a entertainment perspective, you don't have to collect emails anymore. You can literally have people purchase tickets to come into your concert. That's in the form of an NFT that gives you a record of that individual, so that you can promote your show and provide special discounts or exclusive access to things of that nature. It's completely changing the way that we do things. So this is one of the ways, this is kind of like my gateway thing in terms of blockchain technology. So if somebody's hesitant about it, just get a book. You own the book, read the book, use the book. You don't have to worry about doing any of the crypto stuff. You can even purchase the book without crypto. This is what we would consider Web3, is the merging of Web2 and the blockchain space, where it's just behind the hood. You don't know that you're using blockchain technology, and you use traditional means of paying for things. That's, I think, where we're going. But I think that this is a cool way to say, oh, I have a wallet. It's set up on a back end. It's there. I don't know that I have a wallet, but it's set up for you. The book's already there, and you just go and you just open it up on their platform, and you just read the book and engage with the book. And you've literally utilized blockchain technology. So everything that he was talking about in terms of, it's the same thing.
Exactly.
We're just using different technology to do it that allows us greater access to the individuals that we're engaging with.
Excellent point there, Michael. Because I guarantee you that most people in this room don't know how the internet works, right? The TCP,
Absolutely.
IP protocol.
Servers.
Andy might know, but outside of Andy, probably most folks don't, and that's fine. I don't have to know. I just have to know how to use it.
Yep.
Zach.
One, I'm always for more corny jokes, so I'm
Beautiful. All right, good. Okay. Excellent.
slightly more so. So you mentioned estate planning and all that. So I'm at the CPM, which I've had to do with a friend of mine recently, and he had quite a few cool storage walls that his wife didn't know about, that maybe some other authorities weren't quite aware of, that I was later. For an industry, for a community that's known for being a little more out there, maybe a little less
Yeah, and Zach, I want to thank Zach too. He came and he spoke to my class over the summer, so I appreciate you, brother, for doing that. And so I think that the big thing is you have to be loud in the space that we're navigating. Like many of our students right now who are here, you all are the Kai Cenat generation, right? You all are the streamer generation. You are who is the loudest person in the room generation. And unfortunately, in the space that we're navigating, the loudest people in the room win. Even right now, the CFP board is enacting a advertising campaign to kind of push back against online influencers. We were having conversations about this in 2017, right? Like this is not a new thing. And the issue is that because of compliance, because of things that we can't do, we can't be as loud. So one of the things that I've recognized and realized is that I have to continue to utilize my platform and encourage other people to utilize their platforms to share information that at least just gets people to think about the downstream risk. And then once you can sow that seed a little bit, then they start to work on their own. But if we're not sharing those narratives consistently and constantly on the social media platforms where people are, then I'm not even sure how you're heard anymore in the spaces that we navigate. You just get drowned out by the noise.
Yes, we have time for, yes. Get one more question.
Hi, I just have a question on tokenizing things for like not-for-profits. The records are all over the place. Like I've audited not-for-profits, I've worked as a consultant for them. And like they can't figure out what grant they got from where, everything is over the place. Not in CUNY, right?
No, absolutely not. Not here, no.
How could you tokenize? What could you use blockchain for all these grants? What could you do? Because and then what would you be able to do in terms of policy that affect the not-for-profits?
Yeah, I mean, for tokenization, the number one use case I see for now is raising capital. You talked about what you're doing, tokenizing books, actual products, experiences, real estate. I know like real estate's huge for tokenization, or tokenizing ownership in a company or a nonprofit or one of these entities where the concept is you don't have to go to one person to try to get all the capital you need. For example, I just came back from Hong Kong and Dubai, and tokenization of real estate is a big discussion point in Dubai because they're building these massive buildings. They've got to raise $100 million, and in the past they just have to like try to find one investor or two investors that will put up the whole money. By tokenizing the raise, they can now go out to the entire globe and sell fractional ownership and raise that money faster. So these are definitely some of the benefits of it for your nonprofit. If you're looking to raise donations or ownership in it, there's like tokenized crowdfunding that you could do, and then push that in marketing to get more people involved. And also, some folks are using tokenization as a marketing tool in itself. I have some friends that I know where they're trying to raise money to revitalize some hospitals in another country. They're only looking for like 2 or 3 million. They could go the crowdfunding route, but they want to actually tokenize the ownership in that because it's creating more buzz for them. So from that perspective as well, they're using it from a marketing perspective to raise that capital faster.
Just one
Yes.
question. Did you notice that he said only $3 million? So you need to connect with him.
Too, but I don't want to say anything. Yeah, I don't want to say
If you need to raise some capital, clearly.
Antonio is the man to say. Yes, yeah, one little quick question.
Okay, so first of all, I came in late. But
Yeah. I noticed that, Andy, yeah.
and I'll also say I know very little about this topic, but I'm intrigued and I know enough to be dangerous. I guess.
Yeah.
My question is adoption, like widespread adoption of this kind of process. It seems like the barriers of entry, whether it's perceived or real, still seem to be present there. So as you look forward, like how do you see tokenization and more widespread adoption of the use of it in various forms unfolding, or is it just going to kind of reach a threshold and level out for a period of time until more young people, are more comfortable with that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we all kind of had that same theme regarding it just has to feel natural to the person. So like it's got to get to the point where someone doesn't need to enter a wallet address or a private key, and it feels like their Web 2 experience, like you were mentioning. I think like it has to get there for that wide-scale mass adoption to happen.
All right, perfect. Thank you guys again.
Thank you.
Antonio, Michael, thank you again.
Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you again. Okay, and in the interest of trying to have this be kind of sort of on time, I'm going to have us go into panel 2. I'm going to ask our panelists to come up. Nicole DeRosa and Gregory Hernandez. Guys, let's all clap them in, okay? Okay, panel number 2, we are going to pivot just a bit from crypto and wallets, financial planning, to more talking about a topic that I feel honestly has more everyday impact on pretty much everybody. And I'm going to ask our panelists to do a brief introduction of themselves, their firms, and really sort of how they view AI right now. I'll go first, Nicole.
Sure, why not? Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole DeRosa. I'm a director of tax at SKC and Company over in New Jersey. Jersey. I'm a one-trick tax pony. I've been in tax my entire career. I've been through, I think, 17 or 18 tax seasons at this point. I kind of lost count, which is embarrassing, but I love tax. I also am a brand ambassador for UWorld CPA Exam Review. So basically talking to students regularly about the CPA exam, career journeys, and fun things that accountants actually do.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gregory Hernandez. I'm a proud Bronx native. I am a filmmaker. Thank you. Thank you.
Tri-state area.
I was going to say Jersey got nothing. Crickets. Wow.
I will say the film industry originated in New Jersey, so it's important that we know that.
Thank you. Somebody has our back up here. Thank you, Gregory.
I got you.
We got there.
So I'm a filmmaker. I'm also the executive director of a nonprofit called the Bronx Independent Cinema Center. How many people know how many movie theaters are in the Bronx? Show of hands. There's one? You're saying one? Anybody else?
Trick question, I feel like.
Who said 2? Yeah, there's 2. There's a Regal at 161 and then the AMC in Bay Plaza.
Okay.
So we live in a cinema desert, and my organization is looking to change that. I also have a for-profit endeavor as well called Green Canvas Productions. We're an MBE certified video production company, and that's what I'll be talking about in terms of my opinion on AI, how it's disrupting and affecting film as well as video production.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm going to dive right in there. So in terms of branding, social media, influencers, right? They're everywhere. They're influencing crypto. They're influencing finance, health and wellness, and in some cases, corporate taxation. So in terms of that, how is AI changing the conversation around sort of the whole business side, the whole model of being a brand ambassador or being a brand influencer? I'm going to start with you, Nicole.
So I feel like, we all have seen the TikTok videos, we've all seen all those viral Instagram stories about how people can save all these taxes by buying a yacht and writing it off immediately. And I cringe every single time because if it's too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true and don't believe it. But it's always like, hey, Nicole, I have a tax question for you. I saw this Instagram video and I'm like, geez. I bang my head every single time. But it's interesting because that is kind of becoming more, I feel like, of the norm and kind of what's out there. And people are obviously monetizing these things and getting paid for their partnership with associations for certain, relationships. In essence, it's almost like nothing kind of really is changing at the core, because the taxability of it is still going to be the same. They're probably going to file a Schedule C, maybe they'll incorporate, maybe there'll be a partnership or S Corp, whatever they may be. So the taxation, the treatment is still actually the same. It's just a little bit different on how they're actually getting there. There's probably still the 1099 miscellaneous forms that are being issued, the 1099 NECs. We all see the IRS cracking down on that with, the OB3 and kind of the thresholds moving. And they're just paying more attention to it because there's a lot of lost revenue. They're recognizing this, they're onto it. Eventually, they'll probably start auditing them once they open back up again, TBD, whenever that is. But I mean, I would say the taxability, nothing's changing in that regard. It's just people are getting a little bit more creative with how they're, I guess, making their money.
So then I have two quick sort of follow-up questions. One, so then that boat that I bought, I cannot take that as a tax write-off.
Are you going to charter it like once? No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, then I'm going to have to make some calls then today after this event. And two, in terms of OB3, could you add some context to that for the audience, what that is and kind of all
So
that?
everyone has a different acronym for the one big beautiful bill. There's everyone has their own different acronym. I just say OB3 because it's easier, but people say OBBB. I'm like, I lose count after the second B. But basically that was our most recent tax bill that was passed. A lot of changes with that, a lot of changes on thresholds, a lot of changes on taxability. It should be a fun tax season this year.
So all income earned via social media, Instagram posting, that's all still taxable, right?
Unless it's specifically excluded from the IRC, the Internal Revenue Code, it is taxable, yes.
Perfect bite right there. Okay, now I'm going to pivot over, Gregory. In terms of AI and its impact on film, there are all kinds of film applications. Sora 2 is out. There were all those short videos of the cats with the weapons firing off and all that, which are funny, right? Right, they are funny. But how do you view, as a entrepreneur, as a filmmaker, and as a person that I know is really doing a lot of work to try to bring film back to the Bronx, right? Both in concept and in theory. How do you view this whole shift in terms of AI being used for script writing, editing, graphics, and also there are some actors that are entirely AI that I'll come back to later.
Yeah, I'll not going to sugarcoat it. It's scary. This is uncharted territory. For context, I graduated from college from Binghamton University in 2013. I entered the industry. Oh, there we go. Yeah, yeah, fellow Bearcat. Yeah. I entered the industry in 2014. At that time, we were shifting from being specialists, meaning, oh, here's this one thing that I'm really good at. I'm a camera operator. I'm an editor. I'm a colorist. I do audio. To, oh, you need to be good at a whole bunch of things, an assortment. You need to know the entire Adobe Creative Cloud suite if you're going to be able to get that job. You need to learn motion graphics. You need to be one step away from being an animator. And now here we are, just at the end of last year, if you have raise your hand if you have a ChatGPT subscription. Yep. So when Sora 1 came out, it was like, wow, they can do all of that. If you're a drone operator, if you work in visual effects, if you're a supervisor, if you're a colorist, if you work in audio engineering, if you do, let's say, some script writing, yeah, that's going to impact you. I think there was a study where it said about 120,000 jobs would be affected over the next 3 years, so basically by the end of next year. And the thing with Sora 1 is that's as bad as it's going to look. It's going to look amazing by the end of the decade. So as somebody who runs a for-profit production company and someone who's a filmmaker and runs a nonprofit, it's definitely scary. But I also have to say this, it does give me some semblance of a little bit of hope that we're going back to what we used to do, which is you need to be good at that one thing. And what that is going to most likely be is You need to take the skill sets that you've accumulated over time and really understand that you might become an AI overseer, a manager, and really understanding how to make it look good. Because if you're able to really look at some of these videos that it's able to make, you're able to essentially deduce that there are certain drawbacks in some of the drone photography, some of the commercial content that it's making. And let's address the elephant in the room. We have camera operators and photographers here who understand that this is something that could potentially come for their job, but not necessarily, because of the work that they do specifically is in real form, real people. Yeah. So if it's commercial content, certain films, yes, you're affected, but if it's like documentary, which you can still get some archival stuff and get drone footage, yes, that's affected. But if you're covering events, live action, sports, I think you're going to be fine. It's really like along the lines of real form, emotions, things of that nature. And I'm not worried as a screenwriter that AI can replace me, because I have a human heart and I understand emotions. And it can't beat me at that. It can learn.
Sure.
It can help me with certain cognitive repetitive tasks. It can help me spit out some prompts. And if you want that to be your job, or you're doing AI prompts all day and get good at that and get paid, by all means. But my creativity supersedes AI and will always supersede AI. And then I know there's a lot of greed, we can get into that, but yeah, definitely worried. I'll end on this quote. Leslie Kleinberg, who was the former president of the Film Lincoln Center, told me that the future of film is community. So you have to find your real life base of support to really help you find employment and also get support in these dark times.
So AI overseer. I'm going to jot that down for my next job. Okay. So I'm going to pop the hood. In terms of content, authenticity, and trust, right? So I'm going to dive deep quickly into the tax world, right?
Ooh, speaking my language.
Finally, right? Okay, finally, we get into the good stuff here. So in terms of authenticity and trust, right? Everybody who is a CPA, business person in any capacity, always wants to be viewed as trustworthy, authentic, and as that trusted business partner. So, okay, fine. But then at the exact same time, our clients, our customers, our communities are all onboarding AI to help them automate tasks, automate processes, automate almost every aspect of their business. So how do you deal with that? How do you balance that, trying to embrace automation while also maintaining that interaction, that sort of human connection, which is important in every business, be it film, be it tax, be it any industry that's out there, having that personal connection matters. So how do you go trying to navigate that?
I think one thing you actually brought up, we're human. AI is not human. We have those meaningful connections. We grow those meaningful connections. And at our core, it's a client relationship. It's a business relationship. And yeah, our deliverable might be a tax return or financial statements, but, it's the relationship that can't be replicated. So AI is used to enhance. It's not used to replace. It's basically used to refine and make us more efficient, so we can have more time to build those meaningful connections and build those deeper relationships. And quite frankly, if you're an accountant and you're not implementing data automation or leveraging technology, you're going to be out of business, because every firm is investing heavily in these types of products. I mean, even if you go back before COVID, BC, I like to call it, when we were in the office every single day, we were doing things more so by hand. We were popping numbers in boxes. Now we have scan and populate software that, looks at the government form, it scans it, it creates an Adobe PDF, and it pre-populates those boxes for us. Now, sometimes clients love to take pictures of documents, and they might not always be super legible. The scanner isn't going to read that perfectly. It might add a couple of extra zeros. Maybe it'll miss a decimal point, and there's a couple of $1 million of wages that really is supposed to be maybe a couple $100,000. So AI and automation is not perfect. And I think a lot of people also, rely too heavily on it, and they kind of miss the glaring errors. So again, it's used to enhance, not replace, and if you're not leveraging it, you're going to be left behind. And I think clients also realize that, and I think clients who are more forward-looking look to a firm or look to an accountant who is also kind of with it in, you know, current times and not doing things by paper and pencil anymore. Because, you know, if, again, you're not going to adapt and evolve, you're going to be left behind in anything, not just accounting.
And I do think we have some people in here that were at a Deloitte University conference over this past weekend, and they were saying the exact same things, Nicole. That AI is to augment, it's to automate, it is to help.
Yes.
But that there's definitely a role for humans to just have a look at the output, to make sure that based on the input you have, that the output makes sense.
Yeah, and I
right?
think that that's something that a lot of students and people are kind of worried about. Is AI going to replace our jobs? And it's like, well, no, it's going to help us be more efficient. And, you know, when I go to speak at colleges and universities, that's like the one question that everyone is always concerned about. Like, are the jobs or the entry-level jobs or the internships going to be available? And yeah, I mean, it's going to raise the bar without a doubt, but it's not going to eliminate these jobs.
No, and also to just add there, a job is basically just the number of tasks and processes that I have to do, you have to do, you have to do. And so if I can automate a certain number of tasks, there are always other tasks
And there's always going to be
to
other
also
tasks.
focus on. And I'm just going to ask quickly, does anybody in here do less work now in 2025? Less busy, less work now as opposed to 2015? Anybody? No. Okay, perfect. Point made.
They say if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person, so.
That is true. That is true. So in terms of, you know, do we have to start having, going to Gregory, for films that use AI? I know there's been all types of conversation about certain big film companies, I won't name names here because they're very big and very powerful, but have been accused of using AI for their opening credits, for having actors not on set. Do we have to start putting in content things at the bottom, putting some type of AI watermark, AI footnote on content to help people? As you said, AI is only going to get better. Do we have to start adding that?
No, because that would impact, you know, we want to say profit, and people would be greedy. It's the same thing what was talked about before in the last panel, this now being the loudest generation. If you can't tell it's AI or not, then we did a great job. So why would we want to put a watermark there? I know there have been some, you know, last year's Oscar campaign with a couple of films in terms of accents and voiceover work, and that really impacted the actors. You know, not one that comes to mind is The Brutalist, so there were issues there. But it really does come down to us as the, you know, greater population being able to educate ourselves on AI and be able to determine, okay, as we're watching and ingesting this content, 82% of the content we ingest is video. We're watching a movie and it's 3 hours long. Okay, if there's a controversy that comes out, let's have a frank discussion on it. Did I notice that? Did that impact my experience watching the movie, or did it enhance it? If so, let's not be so subtle here. Let's really, again, have a frank discussion.
So to just add some extra sort of background there, Gregory, how big is this film industry in terms of its impact on the overall economy, in terms of jobs or in terms of actual dollars?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I can't really speak to the exact dollar amount, but I will say this, in terms of New York State, we're talking well over the tens of billions of dollars in terms of the output, workforce development, Empire State Development. There are a significant amount of investments that they've made in colleges and universities here in the state. Bronx Community College has done a lot of terrific work with GRIP, and now there's an emphasis on virtual production. There have been a lot of calamities recently in the last few years with COVID and the strikes, now AI. Hollywood is really suffering in the sense of places are closing down. It's not as active. So I think what's going on right now is there's an arms race to build your own studios and be able to control and create your own content. So now we're seeing Yonkers and North saying, oh, we're the Hudson on the Valley, because there's billions upon billions of dollars for tax incentives and capital investment there. New Jersey, now we're seeing investments in Queens, New Jersey specifically with Newark. We're seeing New Line Cinema, Netflix, and Robert De Niro's second studio space is going to be opening up there relatively soon. So I guess to really answer your question is, the dollars are coming is as nimble as you can be. If you have the capital to build, invest, and leverage AI, but really create and control your own content in the sense of asking people, hey, you don't have to go to Hollywood. You can come to New Jersey, you can come to Yonkers, you can come to Queens, and you can shoot your terrific production here, or television or film production here. So I think that's where we're going the next few years. People are leaving, unfortunately, California.
So it's almost like AI coming in, causing some upheaval, causing some changing in the way business operate, is actually opening up the door for more people to get involved in film, either directly or indirectly, whatever her name is. You know, how do we deal with that? That as we have either AI agents, be it bots or other types of AI, doing more and more work. I know I'm a advisor to a company that's building out AI, agentic AI CFOs. How do those employees get paid? Who handles their taxes? And more importantly, who handles any problems, any errors, or any costs that those AI employees are going to cause, right? Right, because going back to our point earlier, AI is being implemented across the board. Are there any conversations happening as to how to treat them from an employee or from a risk management point of view?
I mean, you're referring to like the bots, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, essentially, it would have to be some sort of a subscription or royalty type of arrangement, I would imagine. I always love talking to a person. I hate typing into a chat box because I feel like I still never get what I need to get. And I think that there's a huge resistance to that too. Like I mean, I feel like it's divided, and maybe that's a generational thing, and now I'm aging myself. But at the core, I feel like ultimately it's still going to be very similar in taxability with regard to a subscription or a license fee arrangement, because it's not going to be a W-2 employee. The person doesn't exist. They don't have a social security number. They're not a human. I mean, AI is not a human. So it's not going to be a person getting taxed. It's going to be a company picking up income from a license fee or royalty arrangement or something along those lines. So it's not necessarily hijacking the tax code. It's just a little bit more of a creative way to recognize income.
I always love any panel where accounting or taxes and then creative can be inserted. That's always a great idea.
I don't know if AI can be creative if you were not.
So I'm going to ask you that exact same question, Gregory. We have AI actors out here now, and they're being used in short-form content, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. How is that changing? Just because obviously going from a Hollywood studio to online streaming to individual influencers, all three models have different economics. How does inserting AI people, AI actors into these models, how is that changing that whole kind of conversation?
There's a movie you can watch on Netflix, I believe it's called The Congress, and it talks about actors' names and likeness being utilized in perpetuity. So the actors can retire, but then their, AI or, alter ego never ages and can. And imagine Al Pacino never aging past the age of 45 and still keep making movies.
That'd be something for sure.
It really is. It really is something that is not only difficult to quantify, but it's something that's pretty exciting on a sense of this. you have unlimited possibilities of the type of content you can create. Or you could have an actor or an AI model, speak in several different languages and dance like James Cagney. But it is also something on a moral level where you are taking jobs away from people for the sake of making a lot of money. It's also something where you look at the content that's made, you look closely, you can detect certain issues, but it's also something where we can talk about deep fake videos and other things. It's really hard to see what's wrong with it because it is so useful. And unfortunately, I have to say this can be weaponized not only politically, but for the sake of profit. So it's an unfair advantage, in my opinion, where you're able to utilize this for your purposes. Now, if you're a social media influencer, I'm going to kind of contradict myself here. I think it's fair game if you're on the lower level and you're not this, huge company with a lot of, capital and resources. If you're able to get a leg up on your competition that way and be creative and maybe do it on your own, by all means. But I do think we need to put certain guardrails or some oversight regulations here because when we're talking about certain actors who are dead or certain people like, oh, I wasn't in that, we're kind of playing into the wild, wild west here. So I guess to really answer your question is, it's a lot of money that can be made here, and it's definitely exciting and, again, scary, but I do think we need to get ahead of ourselves here and really clamp down and kind of make sure things don't get too crazy, which I think they already are.
Yeah, I can't tell the difference sometimes between what's AI and what's real. Like some of these videos, I'm like, was that real? Did that floor just completely collapse and everything fell through it and now you're in a different whatever? But it's interesting you say that because I do agree that there's kind of a fine line and we're straddling, we're hurdling that line, and I feel like you can tip over very easily onto the bad side.
Yeah. And when the influencer like that actually wasn't me, and you're like, oh, you got me. It's like, what was the purpose of all of this outside of entertainment, clicks, likes, and you're purchasing impressions without having to spend as much capital. So it's a game changer, but I am worried overall of what we're going to see in the future because, again, if this is as bad as it looks now, before we hit, let's say, 2028, it's going to be something where, wow, that person was in office for 4 years. We never knew. And they were fake the whole time. We're like, wow, it actually happened. Probably a sitcom predicted this, like Family Guy or The Simpsons.
Probably.
Probably, actually. So in terms of overall, right, because obviously film and media are a big part of how we all interact on a daily basis, right? We aren't AI, by the way. We're all real, actual people. We're here, tangible humans here. In terms of overall sort of job market, businesses, because every business is automating. I know here at Lehman, we are going to roll out our undergraduate minor in applied AI soon. And every business wants their employees to be able to be conversant about how to use AI, be it ChatGPT, be it Gemini, Copilot, any other option out there. Sora, DALL-E, Sora 2. In terms of the labor market and just economics, what are you two thinking about seeing in terms of increased automation, just overall on the workplace, on the workforce? How is it going to change things, just overall, right? And I'll start with you, Nicole, just because I know that you have your hands-on experience, right, via taxation and all that, but also those taxes are from client firms. So how is that coming across?
I mean, I think, again, it's more of an enhancement and a supplement rather than a replacement. I mean, I used to Google my answers all the time. I would get to the right answer eventually, but I don't want to go and read. I don't want to read the IRC. I mean, who wants to read the Internal Revenue Code? That's a whole different language, and it'll put you to sleep in half a second. So I mean, if you have trouble sleeping, you could do that. But I mean, we now leverage or we utilize BlueJ, which is basically ChatGPT but for tax research. So it's actually really interesting. And again, it's not perfect and it's not, all the states aren't loaded in yet, but it's a really powerful tool. So seeing AI kind of help me then help my clients or, help just grow my knowledge base in a more efficient way. And quite frankly, a way that I can easily kind of, comprehend in my head without having to go read it back 20 million times is really helpful for me as a tax professional and also just as a human. But it's also enabling me to then train my staff and to teach others by speaking in plain English. Because, you know, when you talk in tax jargon, it's again, it's like learning a different language. So, I mean, that's how, you know, I see it personally. And I hate tax research. I mean, most people I feel like hate research, but I mean, it's part of, you know, what we
We're out
do.
of college here,
I
Nicole,
know,
so
I said most
probably
people.
Some of these people might actually be all about research,
That's
but
why
yes.
I said most, you know, disclaimer, but.
We're going to cut that from the recording, don't worry.
Most, come on. But I mean, it's definitely something that I feel like in the profession, we don't love doing it, but we have to do it. And it's part of making us a more well-rounded professional.
So can I just hazard a sort of comment there?
Go for it.
That if you're able to automate tasks and processes that interns don't want to do, first years don't want to do, directors don't want to do, that then actually creates a more enjoyable job.
Yes, I mean, it does go down to culture for sure, but I will say this, establishing that foundation, there is still work that needs to be done that you know, yeah, it might be automated, but, you know, I always stand by every first year, every intern, somebody should always do a tax return by hand once. Because we rely so heavily on technology, we rely so heavily on the automation that, like, you know, the numbers just magically appear. But in order to understand the logistics of, you know, why is this going here and being taxed as ordinary income? Why is this being, you know, taxed at a preferential rate? Like, understanding and establishing that base is so, so important. So I am all for automation and, you know, enhancing and making things more efficient, but I'm also still very much about you need to establish a strong foundation first, because if you don't have a foundation, what are you going to grow on? Like, what are you going to then kind of, you know, how are you going to be providing exceptional client service if you don't have that strong foundation?
Excellent comments there, and I know that here at Lehman, we always try to highlight that fact that in the workplace, you are going to use AI, you are going to use tools that automate tasks, but in a client meeting, be it in person or on Zoom, if you have a client asking you questions about something, you are going to have to be able to answer them in a certain capacity.
Hold on, let me ask ChatGPT. That's not going to fly.
Thank you for saying
Not
that.
gonna
Okay.
fly.
Proof. Cut. Scene. Cut. All right, Gregory.
Yeah, I'm gonna give two answers. One's corny because I heard you say before, like more corny jokes. We've all
Love it.
seen. I hope we've all seen Star Wars: A New Hope. Luke Skywalker is, you know, being goaded, you know, asked by Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know, use the Force. It's not to be too over-reliant on technology and to trust yourself, your senses. So yeah, these AI automated tools can help us with ideation, preparation, and really, you know, to give us maybe an insight more on our competition. Hey, show me what this model would look like or what this brief could look like, and then I can adjust. I can leverage AI to help train my team, and that'll help me delegate tasks. I disagree. I think every intern should be open to any task, in my opinion, to learn. So you're like, well, I don't want to do this. Like, you're an intern.
You can make them do it. Yeah.
I'll tell you, you should look good. Yeah, I did it. You should be open to it. But, you know, really to give a more serious answer, in terms of film and television, it should allow us to expedite certain tasks and be able to work around the clock, not us, the technology. So I can already go into certain NLE, nonlinear editing platforms, and ingest media and say, hey, you know, make this, you know, select the most usable clips with these people. And it can spit out something on a sequence and save me some time. I can already have, you know, Google Assistants and virtual assistants help me. But in terms of, I guess, the AI, it's more along the lines of how much further can it help me to obtain certain goals sooner and help me be ready to really match, let's say, the work that my competitors are producing. So if it's a film, okay, I know there's certain people who are creating apps now. I'm going to interview somebody on the podcast who's making an app for film trailers. And it'll be something where you can leverage AI with film trailers to help enhance what you're doing, because we only so many seconds with people's attention spans to really get you hooked into the product. So you can say, I'm definitely going to see that, I'm going to like, I'm going to subscribe, I want to learn about that filmmaker. So in essence, I guess to wrap up on my answers, it's really important now, if you're going to work in the film and television industry, that you not only learn about AI, but what are the potential jobs that it will be taking. So I'll highlight a competitor of mine in Queens, Monkabot Studios. They have robotic cameras because it's something where these cameras can articulate and really, get the shots that a lot of the people are getting in person right now. It can mimic a Ronin shot. It can mimic, a crane or a dolly move. So how can you operate that? How can you learn that? And that way, when certain things will be leveraged with AI with that or combined with AI with that, you can be on the front lines of like, I know both sides, I know how to manage this and make sure this is something that gets us consistent, high quality content that'll beat our competitors, again, in this arms race. So.
Excellent answers, both of you, really. And to try to sort of start to wrap up our panel here, AI has a lot of flaws still, right? It isn't always accurate, isn't always up to date, has some biases of all kinds in there. But in terms of the impact that it has on the content that all of us produce, because ultimately, for anybody in accounting, law, film, our output is content, be it tax engagement letters, tax returns, tax, narratives if you're trying to argue a certain point of view, or film, short form, long form, all the rest. Are we at a risk if everyone is using AI to help them create, to help them ideate, to help them automate certain tasks? Are we collectively at a risk of all of our stuff, of all of our output at work sounding exactly the same? And how do you try to mitigate that in the workplace? Because I do think it's only going to become more and more of an issue going forward as more and more folks use AI. If everyone's using ChatGPT to help them ideate their client emails, their IRS correspondence, their film notes, scripts, pitch decks, how do we work to sort of have our work pop in that landscape?
So I actually utilized BlueJ to write a tax memo not that long ago. And I was like, oh, this is so awesome. Because you do the heavy lifting and then I take it and I manipulate it, I read through it, I make it my own. So again, yeah, it helped me organize, it helped me refine, it helped me kind of collate all those thoughts and the tax law. But then I'm going to be the one that tweaks it and takes out the dashes and formats it and makes it my own before I'm going to then deliver it to the client. Because, let's be honest, if you ChatGPT something, it is blatantly obvious that it's ChatGPT. Those dashes are in your face. And it's actually funny, I had to judge, there was the NJ Biz 40 Under 40 Awards this year, and I had to read the nominations. They, were asked a couple of questions, and it was blatantly obvious who just used ChatGPT and sent off that nomination form. And I'm like, you're definitely not going to be getting as highly ranked now because I clearly see what you did and you didn't put the time and the effort in. So I think that it's on us as individuals to make sure that we're not just kind of plugging and chugging, because again, it's also not perfect. Have you ever ChatGPT'd yourself? Has anyone actually, say a couple of us. Was it 100% correct?
No.
Exactly. I think my old employer is still listed,
Nice.
And that happened over a year ago. And when, OB3 happened, again, ChatGPT was blatantly wrong, BlueJ was still wrong, because it takes time to catch up, it takes time to be perfect. So we have to make sure we know that and not just heavily rely blindly on AI, because it's not human, and it's not perfect.
Excellent.
Yeah, from every technological advancement, let's say from the computer, the Mac computer, to our smartphones, there's always been that threat of it dumbing us down, and again, becoming too over-reliant on these technologies. High school students don't really know how to write an email. It's something where they don't know how to write a resume. You have to have those, concrete skills. They can really drive you as you move forward. So you're not just clicking on a prompt and saying, make that clear, or formalize that, or add more to this, and then the prompt, the algorithm of the chat is guiding you to create something that you should be able to know how to create yourself, so that way you're leveraging this to make it better and make it faster. So it's not something that it's doing all of the work. You should be able to still know what looks good and what doesn't. I leverage ChatGPT for certain grant writing, writing narratives, but I still will review it and work with a grant writer or somebody who can help me with the application and understand, like, okay, let's synthesize this data a little bit better, and let's move this up here. Let's add in a little more and personalize this and humanize this and show the urgency, because it's something where you have to be able to review and go back and go back and go back and spend hours teaching this. Don't let it teach you. And I guess one other thing on this is, as we move forward, we're having more and more generations who are isolated, learning, virtually, and that's going to impact certain skills that they would need to still use AI, but also succeed in spite of it. So there are definitely biases with AI, racial biases. A lot of the creators are white Caucasian men, and this is something where we have to have those conversations. So what we're doing right now and highlighting these concerns, I think that's what we have to do consistently to make sure that not only are people not being left behind, but they still have that discipline. And I like what's been done lately in the schools where, you can't use your phone. You got to concentrate, because otherwise we're raising another generation of zombies. I'm a millennial, so I kind of remember,
Me three.
I'm born in 1990. 2004, I got my first smartphone, and I was like, oh, this is great, but I'm going into 8th grade, and I was like, you only use this, sorry, my flip phone, I should say. You only use this for certain, experiences or certain situations. And then now I couldn't imagine learning and having this at my fingertips all the time. Like, it would be too tempting.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point, though, and I will say this about, communication and people skills. I think AI is raising the bar for the importance of actually having solid communication skills and, just people skills, because AI is doing the heavy lifting, but we still have to deliver that message. So being able to communicate effectively, being somewhat of a people person and comfortable to have those conversations, I think becomes that much more important now.
Excellent points. And I think now we do have some time if there are any comments or any questions from the audience. I know, Zach, I know.
From a client service perspective, so we talk a lot about the prevalence of and the rest. How have you run into this where, let's just say, a client goes to the that was a subsection internal revenue of Hudson? How can they, I don't need to pay tax because while maintaining some manner of professionalism, how do you respectfully do this?
So I respectfully laugh to myself first, and then I will pick up the phone and call the client, because first off, talking about anything tax related via email with code sections, forget about it. But I've had clients send me, text before, oh, I saw this article, or, oh, I saw this Instagram, the yacht thing. I'm just oh, geez, Louise. But I say, again, if it's too good to be true, it's probably not true. And, they're looking for clicks or whatever it is. And I reference them to the legit code, or, tell them this is your exposure, this is your risk if you were to do this. And quite frankly, I wouldn't sign off on that tax return if you're doing that, because that's not ethical, it's not right. But I mean, I've had it happen. I think a lot of people in the profession have had clients that think they know more than what a CPA knows.
That never happens.
But I mean, that's what they're paying us for, honestly. If we are able to, provide them the right, correct answer and teach them and explain to them the why, they respect and they appreciate that much more. And I've actually, I've had clients say, oh, thank you for taking the time to actually explain that to me. I never understood it before. I just, I saw it and I just signed off on it, whatever. But to explain and to teach and to educate your clients, that's really the client service aspect that AI can't do.
Yes.
My question has come with privacy protection data in terms of if you're using software to update the consumer data and expose to the consumer, then you're utilizing these softwares. These softwares that constantly comes out and they're
So that's a great question. And so I can speak to Blue Jay specifically just because that's the product that my firm licenses and that's what we use. It's a closed, I don't know the proper terminology for it. I mean, I'm not putting social security numbers in anything that's on the web that's not protected. Obviously, tax return software, way different story. Automation for the tax prep software, completely different story. But, you know, people love just popping things into ChatGPT, and I'm like, what are you doing? You are nuts. I mean, people also send their banking information over email like it's nothing, and I'm like, cringe. But you know, so we don't necessarily disclose to our clients, hey, we're leveraging AI, or hey, we're leveraging Blue Jay or ChatGPT. I think it's kind of like almost like a professional understanding, if you will, that you know we are not going to do that. You know, that's also something that we internally do training on, and we are very specific with our processes and our procedures to protect client confidential data, because that's obviously at the core very important. We're a hacker's dream. I mean, we have banking information, we have social security numbers, we have addresses. Like, hackers would love hacking any accounting firm. So I think the heightened kind of security on what to do, what not to do specifically is just more of an internal training and education within the firm. We do have something, I believe, in our engagement letter that kind of spells it out. I don't know what it actually says, but it's a small little blip, which is in the engagement letter. Do the clients read it? Do they not read it? We do have them sign it before we file or file their tax returns, or actually provide them with their tax returns. We have to have an engagement letter signed for every single tax return. So it is, I guess, in there to a certain degree, but we don't blatantly say, oh, hey, by the way, you know, John Doe, we might be using, you know, Blue Jay to assist us in figuring out why this is taxed that way, or, you know, whatever your specific situation might be.
Excellent question. I think we have time for one more quick one. If anybody has one more short question. Yes, Michael.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, so I think the question is about content fatigue. Will we get to a point with AI and automated tools that people will be fatigued by the amount of content that they're, you know, this content is ubiquitous, that the content that they're, you know, consuming. Speaking from the eye, people that I know in my community, I think they already are. However, what we typically do and what I've seen growing up is you're going to go from one platform to the next. And you're going to seek an outlet where, okay, I'm tired of watching this alone. Let's watch it. Can I watch it with a friend? Can I watch it with other people? Can I go to my local park or my community center and watch this film? And then in terms of content fatigue, certain people may feel that way, but if you're a content creator and you're gaining or getting some wins, and let's say, actually, you know, let's go the opposite. Let's say you're a content creator, you're not winning. As soon as you see somebody who looks like you in your area who starts to do something new and it really like, catch fire, you're going to go, oh, look what they did. Okay, I want to try this. Because I get that sometimes as well. So my last film was 2022, 2023. I'm working on my next one. At the same time, I'm looking at what other people are doing, short form and long form content for inspiration, but also to see what the competition and what the landscape is like. People, specifically filmmakers of color who look like me, men and women, are rejecting Hollywood and saying, I'm tired, I'm fatigued with getting my content to you and not getting an ROI. Why do I want to be so tired and put my content on a platform, then have to hustle again to get you to watch it. Let me go on my own platform, go to my community, get 6 figures in terms of views on YouTube, and then get my film out in my community and see what benefits I can reap. So I would say yes, from at least my experience, people are fatigued, but it really depends on, are you somebody, how you consume, how much you consume, are you a creator, are you getting money? There's different buckets that we can have a bigger conversation on, but the short answer is, I think yes, and then we'll jump to different platforms.
Awesome. Thank you for your questions. And guys, this was a really interesting panel conversation. Thank you both. Thank you both. Nicole, Gregory, thank you.